So, okay, since we got a little bit off track with Avatar, my question for you is, since we started this interview as a video chat, I noticed you guys have a Twilight poster in the background. Do you have any plans for a Twilight musical?
Actually, no. We put up this Twilight clip. It's gotten so much
flack.
like, and it's 50-50 too, because like, our fans, like, half of them love Twilight, so they're like, oh, you guys should do Twilight, and half of them hate Twilight.
Yep.
So they're
every fiber of their being.
And they go, you guys, I hate you guys now because you have a Twilight poster. And we kind of just put it up as like a joke.
Yeah.
Right.
It's, you know, it's funny.
You know, because we've got we have funny posters up. Like, we have Zac Efron posters. Although we really love Zac Efron, like, him we like really love, and I love High School Musicals.
Mm-hmm.
But Twilight, we're not big fans of. Like, I saw the movie Twilight with Chris Allen, who plays Duder in Little White Lie. Like, we went to go see it for free.
Didn't they give you this poster for free?
Yeah, because Chris Allen used to work at a movie theater, so he got the poster for free. Like, he got free movie posters. Like, we've got a poster for Twilight, we've got a poster for WALL-E, and we've got a poster for the movie Rachel Getting Married.
Just funny because it's like...
You should put that in the background.
Yeah,
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's WALL-E, Twilight, and Rachel Getting Married.
Yeah, so we just kind of put up Twilight because we were like, what's a funny poster we can throw up for the back?
It's purely aesthetic. We had that white wall, so it's like...
Yeah, so we're like, the white wall's ugly. Let's put up the Twilight
Something in the
poster.
background. This half of our audience.
Yeah, and so, like, everyone's been, like, writing to us, like, why do you guys have Twilight? And, like, a lot of people are angry and a lot of people are excited. We don't really have any plans to do Twilight musical.
I know very little about Twilight.
Because, we just don't know too much about Twilight.
Right.
Like, we
the
haven't
universe just
read
isn't that in-depth, and the characters really aren't that deep.
Yeah.
I will make no claims either way. If people are listening who like Twilight, I really am not educated enough.
You know,
I
I know a teeny bit about Twilight just because I was, like, curious after I saw... Because we saw the movie, and I was like... Me and Chris were watching the movie, and I was like, this movie's not for me. This movie, I can see why people would like it, but I'm not that big into it. And we kind of walked out in the scene when the girl was like, I know what you are. And he was like, say what I am, say it out loud. And then she was like, your skin is icy cold. And he was like, say it. And she was like, vampire. And then me and Chris were like, all right, I don't need to see how this ends. And we left. But I was kind of curious about what happens, and it kind of sounds like an interesting story. But we don't really have any plans to make a Twilight musical.
All right. That's disappointing, because I'd probably be a big fan of that. But,
Well, you never say never.
You never know, though.
Never say never.
We were batting it around. We're like, could it work? Maybe. I don't know. So we'll see what happens.
Possibly. Awesome. Well, going back a little bit, we already talked a little bit about fan reaction. At what point did you realize that, wow, okay, there's a lot of people who are loving this and becoming obsessed with this?
I think it was when, after 5 days of it being up, we were #1 subscribed and viewed in all of YouTube world. That was when, that's when it hit me.
That's a pretty definitive distinction right there.
Yeah, it's a pretty concrete shocker where you're just like, oh my god, like, I watch YouTube and I know math. I know how many people are in the world. It was a pretty, it was something we didn't realize when we put it up. I didn't think about it. I don't know if it occurred to you, Nick, but I forgot that the movie was coming out. So that was like a huge thing. That was like accidental. Like, people were like, oh man, yeah, good call, like putting it with the movie. It's like, no, I totally forgot. Like, we
just put it up because we put it up.
We just put it up, exactly. And actually, it was really sucked because we had some fan put together a kick-ass Wikipedia page that was really unbiased, and it was really informative of everything that we were, that they sort of collected from different interviews. And I was really impressed. And it saved me the work of having to explain a lot of things about us and who we are and where we come from and where the show's been.
Right.
And Wikipedia took it down after a couple of days on the grounds that it was promotional of the show.
Even though
because
you guys didn't write it?
We didn't write it. I read it because I was trying to show my brother it, and then it was gone. And so there's an article as to why it got deleted. And I was so upset because it was such a. I don't know if you're listening to this and you wrote that. Please put it back up because it was so well written.
Yeah, thank you for writing it.
And it was so comprehensive and completely impartial. Like I said, unbiased.
Right, because there's plenty of stuff like that up there on Wikipedia. As long as no one from your organization is the author of it, it can stay up there. That's bizarre. They should you should have the person who wrote it email.
The grounds of which it was deleted was saying that it was a promotional tool used by the people who created it to support their thing in light of the release of the film. It was literally written like that, and I was so hurt because I was like, no, man, that's not why we did. That's
we didn't do it.
I haven't done anything. Like the only thing we've done with the show is the show. Other than that, if things that people have written or put out.
The show and our website.
Yeah,
and we've done some interviews.
Yeah. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about.
That's all right.
But that's when it hit me, when we realized how well received it was on YouTube. Because, there comes a certain point where people will check out the Harry Potter musical because the name lends it, it's sort of inherent in its own name. It's one of the arguably biggest names of pop culture of today and of the 21st century thus far.
You search anything with the words Harry Potter in it, and you get some pretty big hits.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, we expected, I guess, those kind of hits, but that was when I started realizing that people must be, hopefully, enjoying this, because...
On a grand scale, not just a local scale, like an international scale.
Right. Well, because on YouTube, you can see your demographic. They sort of plot it out on charts, and they have a map and the percentages per country, and they break it down pretty well, and we realized that we were... huge in a number of different countries.
Yeah, people in Australia were watching it, and Israel, and a lot of Scandinavia, Canada. It was really big in a lot of places. Australia was actually thank you, Australia, if you're listening to this. Australia was our biggest. Thank you, all of Australia.
Yeah, every single person in Australia.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, go Australia.
Yeah,
I love Australians.
Yeah.
That's funny.
That's when it hit me. I don't know you, Nick, but that was pretty concrete.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking because we're big YouTube fans, and then it was cool having a place in the YouTube community all of a sudden.
Only second to Fred in Craft Nation.
Yeah, Fred and the Craft Nation, who we're big fans of because we love YouTube.
Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, so do I. That's funny. So obviously the music is a big part of why everyone loves the musical. It's a musical. What are some of the fan favorites, and why do you think they're the fan favorites?
We can ask the fans, but I think people really enjoy Nick, what do you think?
I think people really like going back to Hogwarts, the opening song to the show, because I think it's just Darren wrote that song, and it's just it's so full of love, and it's such an excited song. It's like
an anthem.
Yeah, it's so celebratory of the Harry Potter world. It just kind of encompasses that feel of how great Hogwarts is, and because it's also for me because doing the show, because I graduated from college a year before we did the show, so when I went back to go help with the show, it was like I was going back to school. And, outside of school, because I live in Los Angeles, and it's I just don't know very many people. And I don't, I don't get out much or anything because it's so expensive. So it's really you kind of feel like Harry Potter, to where you're geez, when you're not in school, it sucks. It sucks. You don't have any friends. You just are sick of it, and you're waiting around. And then it feels like it's such a celebration of this community and of school in general. It's that's kind of an appeal of just Harry Potter in general, that it's this celebration of all the great things about childhood and about going to school and everything,
and being with the people who you
really because while you're in
school,
while you're in school, you're oh, school sucks. But then when you think about it, it's just such a great community, and you get to see all your friends that you love, and that's what going back to Hogwarts is all about. I think people really connect with that.
Yeah, I'm personally a fan of AJ's music because I didn't write it, and I just think AJ is so talented.
AJ Holmes,
so incredible.
A lot of people love To Dance Again, which is when Voldemort comes back to life and he has a new body and he can dance.
Mm-hmm.
At last, again, a lot of people love that because they love seeing Voldemort dance. Like Voldemort in the show is a big fan favorite because he's just so gosh darn lovable. Because people just love lovable villains because it's like a guy who's like so clearly flawed, but you can see the inner workings of his head. And Voldemort in this show, in particularly, because it's like. Because he's like kind of like having this growing relationship with Quirrell and realizing that he doesn't need to be evil and like because in the books Voldemort is just like pure evil and he's all bad. But we kind of had this joke about like Voldemort and Quirrell like living on the back of each other's heads for a year. We're like, what did they talk about?
What kind of relationship does that foster? Is on the back of your head all day. It's like you got to get to a certain point where you're like, this is so hungry, or what do you want to do?
Because it's like because the show is made up of like a lot of jokes that we've had for a long time, and the Voldemort and Quirrell joke is like a big joke that we had that was like. The story was kind of inherent with the joke to where they kind of didn't like each other at first, but then they had to spend a whole year together, and then they became such good friends, and then and then Voldemort dies, but he goes back to Quirrell when he dies, and that's the secret ending that you don't know.
Happened in the books.
Yeah, it's like, but really in the books, Quirrell dies, which kind of sucks. Which is weird because in the movies you see him explode. You see him like turn to dust and explode. But in the books, they just kind of like mention it.
Yeah, it's just
at one point they go, "Oh, remember that Quirrell guy? He died." And so it like so I think people really like the Voldemort story. They like To Dance Again. They love the song. Voldemort is Going Down, which is another song that AJ wrote because that's also like another anthem that's like all the kids uniting. It feels really cool. It's like the only time they ever really mentioned Dumbledore's army in the play, and people I think really love that because they love to see all of the. It's especially good I think in the musical because like. Kids that weren't in Dumbledore's army are now all of a sudden in them because, like, in the musical, everyone turns into a good guy except for Bellatrix, who's the only character that kind of just like dies. But like Draco and Crabbe and Goyle, who everyone grows to love in the show, and they're like even joining in at the end, and they're all gonna unite to beat the big bad guy. And so people really like that.
Also, A.J. Holmes comes from an incredible musical theater background. I mean, we're all obviously fans of musical theater, but I set out to write more of the sort of pop rock songs, and A.J. has a really great theatrical sensibility to the point where, so To Dance Again is sort of a vaudevillian kickline number and is written as such, and Voldemort is Going Down is reminiscent of any sort of march, Les Miserables.
Like Les Mis, which I absolutely love.
So, sorry, the thing is we love them all. You didn't ask us what our favorite songs was, where you asked what the fans were, so I can't vouch for all the fans, but...
Yeah, well, what are your guys' favorite songs?